that's probably true.
Yep.
All right, welcome to the Practical Pistol Show. My name is Ben Steger. I'm here to answer your shooting questions. Joining me today, as always, producer Candice. Say hello.
Hi. Whoop, shit.
Hi, Candice.
Hi.
Jesus. And that smiling face from Central Arkansas is Mr. Matthew Mink. He is a Team CZ shooter grandmaster guy. Has won tons of matches. He's awesome, and he's here to talk with us about some stuff. Sound good, Matt? You ready?
Sounds fantastic.
All right. All right, for our discussion topic today, I caught a Facebook conversation over the weekend. I don't remember whose page it was on, but that's not really relevant because there were some interesting comments. It made for a good conversation, so I grabbed the relevant posts, and we're going to talk about them here with Matthew Mink. So, what started this little shitstorm was this. Does anyone else think that unless you have shot at least 100 matches and won overall in your division at a couple majors, you don't need to have an athlete page? I mean, I'm glad you shot your second IDPA match in your life, but you're not a badass yet. So as you can imagine, quite a few people had some things to say about that. So we'll start off with you, Mink. What do you think about that comment?
I think it's it's a little over the top, I suppose. Maybe somebody was trying to get a rise out of a lot of people. Do we know anybody like that by chance?
I wasn't me who posted it.
Okay, me personally, I do not have an athlete page. I like to think of myself, maybe I am a little bit in shape, but I still don't have an athlete page, and I probably never will. But if other people want to do it, sure. I do, however, have seen some what I think is people that shouldn't have created an athlete page, but you know maybe that's neither here nor there, or maybe it is. Maybe this is the discussion. Should they even be doing it in the first place? I don't know.
Well, here's the question then: who should have an athlete page? Right? That
maybe
Tiger Woods, I guess.
James.
No, I mean,
Yeah,
like,
Tiger
as far as USPSA shooters, who should have a Facebook athlete page, or IDPA shooters, or whatever?
Oh, well, that throws a wrench in the whole thing. I know Facebook's original intent for the athlete page was probably not exactly how it's being used today. So maybe we'll say that. But who should have an athlete page? I don't know. Look at Robbie. He's won everything. He's one of the most accomplished shooters that's ever done what we do. And does that guy have an athlete page? I don't know. Should he have?
Let me check. That's. I think he does.
Does he?
I'm checking. Just relax about it. I know that. Well, most kind of upper level USPSA or IDPA shooters. Yeah, Rob Latham athlete page, 11,000 likes. There it is.
Yeah, of course,
yeah.
Robbie.
All right, so
he probably should have an athlete page. He can list everything he's ever won, and that's a heck of an accomplishment. The guy has, him and along with a few other guys, not only helped get the sport started, but he came up with a lot of the techniques that guys like me and Ben still use to this day. So yeah,
so
Robbie has
that's
an
why
athlete
he should
page.
have an athlete page, is because he's old.
Well, let's look at. For me, I was like, a guy like Latham should definitely have an athlete page.
Yeah, he probably should.
All right, and then there's some guys who have like 30 likes and have shot 3 matches on their. They probably should have an athlete page, but it's the people in the middle. That's where it's kind of tough. It's kind of tough to figure it out.
That's kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, a couple more interesting comments were made on this thread, or that might shed some lights on things. One guy posted, "I consider making a shooter page directly so I can detach my personal Facebook page from so many of the idiots that make up the shooting world I don't really get along or agree with. Some will send a friend request, and then boom, I've got to read their dumb political bullshit." So having a shooter-athlete page kind of separates your personal page from all the shooting nonsense. So that might be a good reason to do it.
Sure.
What do you think about that?
Okay.
God.
It sounds. I mean, yeah, it sounds like that's logical, but I still don't have an athlete page.
Oh my God! All right, and then one other comment posted on there that kind of caught my eye. I have an athlete page in order to not flood my personal page with just shooting-related stuff. It's nice to have an outlet to post match videos, demo videos, photos, and the like without bombarding my personal page with all of it. Plus, for sponsors, it gives you a way to track what people see, and share, etc., to make it accountable. So, what do you think about that, Matt? So, if you're sponsoring some guy who's on Team Automatic Accuracy,
Which we do.
what do you do? Would it be nice if that dude had an athlete page or not?
I honestly don't care if he did or didn't. We do sponsor a team of guys at about the master class level, and these are good guys. And Ben, you know several of them, but we don't make them do an athlete page. Basically, if they go to a match, they meet people, they're professional. They talk about the business, they talk about the things they're doing, and people remember that. If people go and look for an athlete page and don't find it, sure they can make one. I really don't care, but it's not a prerequisite. But I can kind of see the point with separating the personal life from the shooting to a degree. However, since shooting is such a large part of my life, I have a Facebook page which is just me, but everything goes on there. And I don't use it a lot, but yeah, everything goes on there. If I take it, I'll post it on my page. If I do well at one, I may post it up there too. Bam, I'm done with it.
Yeah, okay, good. So now we can move on to the speed round of questions for you, Mr. Mink. It's an interesting conversation to talk about who should and shouldn't have an athlete page. For me, it's kind of tough for me to tell some dipshit like,
hey,
you
Ben,
can't
should I have an athlete page? Ben, should I have an athlete page?
I don't care. Like, I don't care
clearly.
or not. You have like 200 Facebook friends.
I know, man. I'm popular.
Yeah.
Well, it's because I don't ask anyone to be my friend, dude.
People are afraid of you. That's why you don't have more friends.
That's cool.
All right. Anyway, let's go to the speed round of questions for Mr. Mink. As usual, I put out a note on Facebook that he's gone, so I got some good questions for him. Mink, your connection sucks my balls. So Central Arkansas, y'all got to get your shit together down there, but that's fine. We're gonna make do with it. Okay.
Yeah, we just got electricity 2 weeks ago, so I thought this ice storm would knock us back in the Stone Ages, and we were all reminded ourselves that that's only 2 weeks ago. No big deal.
Jesus Christ.
All right, speed round.
Yes. In your opinion, what is the most important aspect of shooting fast and accurate?
Hitting the targets.
This guy's more coming at it from a technique point of view. Is it trigger control, grip strength, or shot calling? You gave out those examples.
Okay, so hey, he wants a deeper answer. I'll take it. Okay, so basically, all right, shooting quickly and accurately, it really comes down to trigger control. Sight alignment's a somewhat distant second, but it also depends on the shot. Close stuff, the hosey stuff, half the time I don't even use the sights. Mid-range stuff, if it's 15 yards out, yeah, you got to use some sights, but that's the whole kicker. When to use the sights and how much to use the sights. Really. That puts the shooter into the upper echelons. Once you have that down, you're cooking along. Of course, 50-yard target. If there's a whole bank of them, you're going to use a totally different technique for those than a 3-yard hosey target. But basically, yeah, trigger control, then sight alignment, then everything else.
All right. Now, why should I buy a shadow from you instead of from CZ Custom?
So okay. We actually get that question almost daily, and here's what we tell them. I am my shop, Automatic Accuracy, is not really in competition with CZ Custom. So the backstory is, okay, I'm sponsored by CZ USA. Angus is sponsored by CZ USA. We both represent the brand. Angus is, he is CZ Custom. Of course, he has a full staff of gunsmiths and employees, and they put out a good product. So do we. But we source most, if not all, of our parts from CZ Custom, so it wouldn't do us a lot of good to, smear those guys' name in any way, and we have no reason to. We also get a lot of the base guns we build off of comes from CZ Custom, and we also get guns from CZ USA, of course. But yeah, CZ Custom, they make a great product, and so do we. There is some price disparity, and I think that comes from us being a slightly smaller operation, and we do take a little more time with the gun as far as the trigger aspects. myself and I've got a full-time gunsmith now. We take a lot more time on the trigger and the trigger install, everything that moves. We do a lot of work on those guns, and it is reflected in the price. Our guns are a little bit higher, but again, not saying that they do a bad job and we do a good job. It's just we have a little more labor in the guns.
All right, so good. So yours is the more expensive thing. All right, I like that. Okay, is the Accu-Shadow going away? I haven't heard anything about this.
What?
Yeah, this guy, is the Accu-Shadow going anywhere?
Must be that IDPA ban.
I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, that's a whole nother.
Anyway.
We will have to touch on that before this is over. But the Accu-Shadow going away, I have not heard anything like that. It's still on the USPSA production approved list, not on the IPSC list, much to my dismay. But fine. As far as I know, it's going to continue to be a production. It's going to continue to be a USPSA production gun, but it also is a production line gun from CZ Custom. So I don't think it's going anywhere, and I hope it doesn't, because I think it's an awesome gun. I got 2 for use last year, and to be quite honest, I thought the concept was interesting, but I didn't really think that I would see much gains over the stock Shadow, and I was very surprised at the thing is more accurate, especially at distance, and especially if you feed it good ammo. We've done some independent testing. We've got a ransom rest here, and plus, we all, of course, make our own ammo. So we fed it some really, really good hand-loaded ammo and put it on a ransom rest, and basically found that the results that CZ Custom got was identical, or close enough to what we discovered with the gun. So the bushing system does make a difference. It is more accurate. Another byproduct is the gun compared to a stock Shadow shoots a little softer. I'm not sure if it's the extra weight on the front end or maybe it's the tighter bushing fit to the barrel, but it is a tick softer. It's hard to quantify, but we've done several tests where we've had a demo booth and we've taken new shooters, experienced shooters, and had them shoot a stock Shadow, had them shoot an Accu-Shadow, and we asked them which one shoots softer, and every single person has said the Accu-Shadow shoots a little softer. So it may be one of those. It's a small advantage, but it is a definite advantage. The accuracy advantage for USPSA, we don't do a lot of bullseye type shooting. It does pop up here and there, but like I tell everybody, I like to know that if I'm running good ammo and a good gun, and that top shot does show up, yeah, it's good to have a better tool to make that shot.
Now, on the Accu-Shadow topic, you did try to shoot EPA Nationals with one last year, didn't you? Is that an okay subject to talk about, or is that off limits?
Yeah. Oh, no, it's not off limits at all. So basically, 2 days before EPA Nationals, I remember exactly where I was at. I was actually driving back from my home range, Casa, just west of Little Rock, and I think I was teaching a class. I can't remember if it was a small session or what. But anyway, I'm driving back, and the phone rings, and it's Bogle, and he was bent out of shape because we are 2 days away from EPA Nationals. Now I'm leaving the next day. And so was Bob from Ohio. Bob had heard that. Bob had heard that apparently USPSA Grandmasters could not shoot for score at EPA Nationals, and I knew that immediately that
may not have been
true.
Entirely true. That may have been some people making jokes on the internet to that effect.
It could have been. Really, I hear that on the internet, so I fed him a little bit, like, oh yeah, I heard that. Oh, that's terrible. What are we going to do? And anyway, so finally I realized, Bob, that can't be true. It just can't. So anyway, then the next thing he told me was, hey, did you hear the Accu-Shadows have been ruled illegal? And then, of course, now I'm thinking he's joking. And anyway, so he sends me over a link, and I'm like, oh no. So I had 12 days to find an old 75B that I could shoot. The gear, sight the thing in, make sure the thing ran. I basically had 30 minutes of practice with the thing.
Well, hold on. Let's be fair about this, though. They did offer to lend you like a Glock 19 and a Phobos.
No, it's a Smith & Wesson M&P with the Phobos, right?
Both of you are correct. You had your choice, which I think is very important. See, I would have been really mad if they hadn't given me that choice. But since the choice was made, I thought, okay, well, this is more than So I had to go with the gear that I'm pretty sure would run, and it did. I had one death jam on one stage because I didn't have any time with the gun. Should have changed the extractor out in it. Should have changed the spring. But when you got like an hour to get your gear together, you overlook a few things. But regardless, so I show up there and I'm trying to have an open mind. And I'm like, okay. Surely they did this for a reason. There's got to be a reason. So anyway, I shot the whole match, and that is a whole nother story. It was the most unfair SOs I've ever seen in my life, making calls just out of the clear blue sky. There were some of them that were just, they were after me, CZ shooters, who knows what, but I was come down on it, even to the point I shot the match with Vogel, and at the fourth stage in, he said, man, they are like all over you this year. I'm like, yeah, I don't get it.
That's because you're bashing them on the fucking internet, you dick.
Yeah, because I'm on the internet so much.
All right, so you're definitely going back to IDPA Nationals, right?
I am not. I think, I shot IDPA since the beginning. I shot since '98, and the sport started in '96. Here in my home state. It was around in '97 a little bit, but '98 started really taking off, and I started shooting it, and I supported it. The entire time up until IDPA Nationals of last year, because what they did with the CZ shooters was pretty ridiculous. How can you send a message out 2 days before the match and tell them that a previously approved gun was now illegal to shoot at the Nationals? And most of these guys, if you're on either coast, you're already a day into your trip on the way to the range. It's too late. Now, what's even more ridiculous is the fact that the email they sent out, and I'm just going to paraphrase, they said basically, CZ Custom is not part of CZ, the conglomeration, and therefore the Accu-Shadow is illegal. Now, they didn't mention any other gun. They didn't mention the SP01 Shadow Target. They didn't mention the 75 Shadows. None of the things that all the guns that CZ Custom make, they only focused on the Accu-Shadow, which tells me that the end game was to get rid of that gun. And if that's what IDPA wanted to do, they could have very easily just said, okay, we think the Accu-Shadow is above and beyond the scope of what IDPA is about, so we're going to ban that gun. The rest of them are good. If they had done that, I would have been a little more understanding, but that's not what they did.
All right, good. A little bit of shitting on IDPA is always good. All right, would you consider level 1 club matches useful in terms of practicing, or do you think dedicated time at a range, running drills, is more useful?
Okay, that's a good question. It really depends on the shooter. All right, level 1 is defined as state level, correct? I'm not an RO.
No, level 1 is like club matches.
Oh, club matches. Okay.
Right, you can have boxes, shooting boxes and stuff.
Right, and more than 8 rounds per position, et cetera, et cetera. Right. So, I think the short answer is it depends.
That's not very exciting.
If you have a club like we do, we have a really, really good setup crew that comes up with some awesome stages. Our club level matches are just about the level of an area match. That's no exaggeration. So I say if that's the case, you probably need to be shooting the club matches. Case in point, Vogel was down. We taught a class here at the range, and part of that class was we shot our club match the second day. Bob, in 2 stages into this match, he says, "This is the best club match I've ever seen in my life." I'm like, "Yeah, it's like this every month." And he thought I was joking. And I'm like, "No, dude, this is serious. Every single match, this club is on a great match." So if you got that scenario, I would say shoot some club matches. If you have a scenario to where basically the match is phoned in and they just throw stuff out there and you just kind of go through the motions, you can probably skip those. But if the match is not challenging, like there's no movers, there's very few pieces, there's hard cover, no shoots, there's no options, there's basically one way to shoot every stage. Those are the ones you can probably skip. Costa does such a great job. Some of the larger stages, 28 to 32 rounds. There may be 5 different ways to shoot it, which is what we see at Nationals quite a bit. Those matches, if there's good hard cover use, good no shoot use, good use of steel, and have some movers with some options, clamshells, traps, etc. That club match is probably worth your time to make an appearance and shoot it and try to learn something. It also could depend on the skill level. If you are a brand spanking new shooter, yeah, I could certainly make the case that you might want some on the range time to figure out some things before you shoot some of the more difficult matches. So there's a long answer.
Okay. That's fucking.
I talked so long, you forgot what the
Wake up,
question.
man! Wake up! Next question.
I'm more or less awake. What do you want to see happen in gun sports over the next few years?
I want to see it keep growing. You know, in the events of the last few years, we've seen an explosion of brand new shooters showing up at the range, and a lot of them are sticking around nowadays. They're all into not only just owning guns and throwing them in the safe and not doing it. They're beyond that now. They're actually wanting to shoot the guns. They're wanting to get better with them. They're looking for good instruction. They're getting their friends into it. That's as the shooting sports. That's what we've got to have to keep growing. They keep saying the juniors are the future of the sport, and to a large degree they're right. But really and truly, we need the juniors, and we need all these new shooters to keep coming in. At the club, we usually have a good selection of new shooters. Like say on the we usually have like 5 new guys a month. That's pretty good for a smallish club for USPSA.
All right. So you want the sports to keep growing. I like that. That's a good answer. Is there any necessity in your eyes for the sport to become Olympic?
Olympic,
like a sport in the Olympics, I assume.
Yeah, like curling.
Like curling, yes.
Okay, well, I brought that up. So here's, I'm not a very opinionated person, but I absolutely despise and hate what the Olympics has turned into. The Olympics, back 2,000 years ago, was a sport based upon martial contest that deals with weaponry. So everything had a direct correlation with what these guys lived and breathed, every day. From the javelin throwing to the running to everything was physical. There was a clear-cut winner, etc. Nowadays, you've got these sports, and I use the term loosely, that is judged by a panel, purely subjective, and the crowd could think somebody won, and the judges think somebody else won, and we call that an Olympic sport. I think it's ridiculous. So for the shooting sports to be in Olympic sports, I would actually be incensed if we became part of the Olympics. I think it's not what it was.
Well, wouldn't that make it closer to what it was and make you like the Olympics more?
Maybe, except the fact that, back in the 80s and 90s, if USPSA tried to court the Olympics, try to get that shooting sports in, and the Olympics just turned their nose up at us. And that's where the headless target came from, or one of the reasons, just to try to get try to make it appear less real life.
People shooting them in the face.
Yeah,
right.
Face shooters. So bam.
When they thought that the shooting sport should pull back from its roots, I was a lot less interested in the Olympics, and I still am. I think it's ridiculous. So if the shooting sports became part of the Olympics, I would have to maybe reevaluate some things. I'm not sure it's a good idea. Maybe it is in the standpoint that we could show these guys that the shooting sports is a viable sport. It's way more sporting than curling. I mean, what is that about?
Curling?
You just shit on the curling people.
Dude, I don't know.
Not very
Curling's
nice.
like you brush the ice. I think it's kind of.
I'm sure there's technique involved. I'm not dissing on the people that do it. I'm just questioning, should it be an Olympic sport?
Well, that's pretty fucked up, man. It sounds like you're dissing on people that do it.
Oh man, that made me sad. The show's not about that.
I had a tragic curling accident, so I don't like to talk about it.
Okay.
All right, one more
next
question. There's more question that I think you'll like. We'll skip these other two are kind of dumb. It seems that production division is running toward limited. Should production be limited to certain classifications of pistols? Example would be polymer or steel. This way, if all pistols are the same, then you are beat by the driver versus the pistol. So I think what this guy's saying is steel guns are better. Like CZs are just better, and guys shooting Glocks should be separated somehow. How do you feel about that, Matt?
So basically, a new division for guns with training wheels.
I don't know. You used to shoot a Glock. Do you feel like you get a substantial advantage with your CZ, or Do you just like it better, or what?
Yes to the both. Yes to both of those statements. I felt I'd hit a plateau with the Glock. I couldn't do anything else with it. I could only shoot it so fast. The targets at further distances I was really struggling with. Now, some of that could have been technique back at the time.
How
Trigger
long
control.
ago was that?
It's like 800 years ago, Candice.
Well, he was back at the original Olympics, so maybe.
Yeah,
Okay.
division back then. We were just after the javelin throwers, but no.
I mean, really, how long was that?
2003 was my last year with the Glock. I think I started some of 2004, if I recall.
Wow.
And I switched in 2004, and I was going to switch to CZ whether they picked me up or not. It just when I met Angus, he made it way easier to switch. I was trying to buy two guns that were identical because I just loved them. I'd heard about them, but I haven't really ever had any experience with them. And I felt they were great ergonomics. They shot just unbelievable. Very little recoil. The triggers were phenomenal. And I was like, I've got to have these. This is the next part of my evolution. And I'm not saying the Glocks are bad. I mean, I did shoot the Glock for about 5 or 6
All right.
years.
So, is it unfair for people shooting Glocks? I mean, they can't win.
Ask Dave Savigny back in the day. Ask Bob Vogel now. I think that's a ridiculous assertion. Those guys are winning because they have found a tool that they can use, and they use it well. For me personally, I plateaued with the thing. I tried to like it better than I did, and I just got to the point where I cannot get past its lack of accuracy at 30 yards plus. I couldn't get past the fourth trigger pull, the god awful grip angle. I just didn't like it. Anyway, now something better, and as you say, it's history. I really like the CZ platform. I joked that hey, when they fire me tomorrow, I'm still going to shoot their guns. They'll have to send me a cease and desist, but I'm still shooting the CZs. I like them. Ergonomics, low recoil, accuracy, great triggers.
All right, cool. So,
yeah,
whatever. We can't hear you anyway.
If you remember the original question, unlike the host.
I remember it.
I don't think there needs to be a separate division. That's ridiculous. We're all production is production. It's a gun that is currently offered by a manufacturer. We can do certain things with it, which is grip, sights, trigger, no external modifications. That's I think it really has driven the manufacturers to build a better mousetrap, though. Look at the guns of today versus the guns of 2002. Field back then.
Okay, good. So let's move on to some. They got a couple of podcast questions for me.
All right.
Candice, what do we got?
So, first one is, how do you feel about the top GMs getting a pass on, say, an accidental discharge or breaking the 180 and such? I know you've witnessed it or at least heard of it.
Yes, I have. I've witnessed it. I've heard of it. I don't know that top GMs get a pass really any more often than other people. Maybe, but I don't know. I see a lot of people get passes at matches who do sort of questionable things, and I've seen plenty of ROs DQ top shooters as well and not have a problem doing it. So I'm not sure that top shooters get a pass any more often than other dudes do. It's kind of RO dependent, and for every RO, I feel like for every RO looking like, hey, I'll just give this guy a pass on this, or give him a double, or whatever it is, there's some other guy who's kind of like, I'm not saying that there's an RO who's looking to fuck top-level shooters, but they certainly don't feel bad. They're like, yeah, top-level guy, like, he's going to get his, or whatever. They don't feel bad at all about, making some sort of a call not in the favor of a top shooter. What do you think about it, Matt?
I think that assessment's dead on. There are ROs that are just looking for an excuse. You remember a few years back at Area 5 where I shot that 2-yard target through the window, and the only thing you could see was an A zone, and the guy gave me an alpha mic, and I argued with him like, where's the other bullet? It would have had to hit the wood, the ground, or I would have sent it over the barricade, and he didn't get it. I'm like, alpha mic. Clearly I have to score what I can see. Well, you could use a little bit of logic too, because basically, if I'd shot the wood or the ground or sent one over, you would have had to give me alpha mic and a DQ, but that's not what he did. He knew it was there. He just wasn't going to give it to me. So yeah, there are guys out there that are looking to get us, but there's a lot of really good ROs out there too. I'd say the good ROs are definitely in the majority.
Right. So what I'm saying, I've encountered the guys who kind of like being the dude to DQ people. You don't see too many of them. You see ROs who try to do a good job, kind of regardless of who it is, and that's the majority. And then there are some guys who kind of get a little starstruck and will kind of do favors. They think in their mind they're going to do somebody a favor, do a top level guy a favor. So I've kind of seen all of that. So I don't know that that's really a thing. All right, Candice, let's hit the next question.
Well, first, do you think that the person asking the question, are they a top-level GM, or are they basically saying there's favoritism?
Well, they are saying there's favoritism,
Okay.
but
Right.
I would doubt that the person sending. I don't remember who sent it, but I doubt they're a top-level GM because I know enough top-level GMs that that's not really the sense of it.
Okay.
If you're on the super squad, there's not a sense oh, we get to do whatever the fuck we want. It doesn't really work that way.
Yeah.
Okay. We police ourselves quite a bit.
Yeah, I would think you guys would tear each other to shreds and try to win by saying, no, you need to, enforce those rules on that dude because I want to win.
I would say the exact opposite is the case. A lot of times, if we see somebody get a bad call, we actually spring to their defense. If we see somebody get a gimme, a lot of times it's done in private, but a lot of times we come back and say, hey, dude, you really had this, I gave you this, but we do it away from everybody else. But a lot of times we do self-police ourselves, and I know I have been in some fairly comical situations before with super squad that they have gotten things they shouldn't have gotten.
I'm really glad that his audio is cutting out right now because I don't think there's anything good about this.
No, this is heading towards danger zone.
It's heading to a not good place.
Next question.
Yeah, let's do the next one.
I have a CERT training pistol for dry fire and use a stock Gen 4 Glock 7 without an added backstrap. The difference in grip size, distance from backstrap to trigger, is about 2 millimeters. Is that enough to mess up my index, or should I just get the F over this and just practice?
Well, I'll do what I like to do sometimes is let's think of the opposite answer of the correct one is no, dude, you're fucked. Don't practice. If that's what you got, then fuck it. I don't see the point.
Yeah, I don't see the point either.
Of course, that's stupid. Yeah, of course you should. It's not exactly the same, but practice. Practicing with that's better than not practicing. So you might as well.
Could he practice with his regular gun?
Well, that's usually what people gravitate towards. I like practicing with my own gun, but Sorry, Matt, I would have you jump in on this question, but my understanding is that you don't practice.
No,
you don't practice. Okay.
This is practice.
I don't know. God, y'all's internet sucks balls down there.
You sure it's not you?
Well, you're having trouble hearing Matt, aren't you, Candice?
Yes, I am. He cuts out a lot.
All right, so instead of coming up with new and inventive ways to bread and fry things, maybe y'all should, get some internet down there.
What's this internet you speak of?
Yeah, he still doesn't know what's going on. All right, well, anyway, this is a good time to end things. If you'd like to talk with Matt or buy a CZ from him or buy ammo, it's automaticaccuracy.net. Is that right?
Correct.
All right, automaticaccuracy.net if you'd like to buy whatever it is that Matt is selling. If you want to get in touch with producer Candice, drop some comments on the YouTube channel or friend her up on Facebook. She doesn't have many friends, and she won't friend request too because pride. And if you want to talk to me, head over to bensteger.com. I would love to hear from you and send me your shooting questions.